Hi, this is Nick. Welcome to ISG, where we talk all things real estate in the Czech Republic. Today, we're going to do the review for June 2025. A little bit of a change today in the background, so I'm coming to you from Spain, but we've still got some great news about the Czech Republic. Property prices in Prague grew 0.4% for the month of June. That's the fourth month in a row we've seen a very small increase. So we are still moving higher, but we're not making the big gains that we saw earlier in the year. Across the country, we've seen prices fall back around 0.2% on average. And interestingly, if we look at the big cities like Brno and Ostrava, we're seeing that the prices are behaving similarly to Prague, moving up quite slowly but steadily towards newer high levels. So it's really just the rest of the country where prices are falling back a bit, which is why we're getting this negative level. Prague rental prices rose again by 0.9%. Overall, though, we're still 4% below the highs that we saw earlier in the year. So we're still regaining, but it's going to be September, October time, I think, before we see really which way the market is going there, because that's when we have the largest volume of new tenants coming into Prague. If we look across the country, prices rose around 0.2%. But what's interesting in terms of rents is they've actually fallen across the last 12 months in Pardubice, Zlín, České Budějovice and Jihlava. So not all places have been growing the way that Prague has, and it's interesting that some of these cities are actually negative for the year, which is quite surprising given the backdrop of the economy. Mortgage interest rates have remained the same, around 4.94%, so really no change there. And what's interesting though, we are finally seeing decent volumes of mortgages. We're now back to around the same level we saw in 2021, so that's when we had some big growth. I think lower interest rates could continue this growth up, but it's interesting that the mortgage market as a whole is quite healthy. A lot of that will be refinancing, and of course as prices have gone up, mortgages will of course be bigger. I think deposits are smaller and people are borrowing more, so that's why we're seeing that. Data across the EU was released this month, and we saw the average for the EU bloc as 5.7% growth in house prices in the last 12 months. Interestingly, during that time, we've seen 9.9% in the Czech Republic, which is at the higher end of the scale, although Portugal at 16.3% is the big winner. Only one member of the bloc saw house prices fall, and that was Finland, where they fell 1.9%. So again, the Czech market is in quite good condition when we compare it with the rest of Europe. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.